with the increasing costs of living. Here's why the Paris Agreement isn't necessarily the best idea. When dealing with fossil fuels, limiting the use of offshore drilling won't really have a substantial effect on the environment, or the amount of cars on the road for that matter. There's just as many, if not more, cars on the road than ever. The incentive to get consumers to switch over to electric vehicles isn't a bad one, but we have to be realistic. The amount of infrastructure for charging stations aren't nearly as readily available as gas stations to fuel your car. Critics argue that the Paris Agreement does not adequately address the disparity between developed and developing nations. While developed countries have historically contributed more to global emissions, the agreement may not compel them to take proportionate responsibility, potentially placing an unfair burden on developing countries. One of the main criticisms of the Paris Agreement is that it relies on voluntary commitments from countries to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Some critics question the overall effectiveness of the Paris Agreement, suggesting that even if all commitments are met, it may still fall short of the goal to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, above pre-industrial levels. There are also economic arguments against the agreement, as evident on the rising cost of gasoline being one of them, with some suggesting that the transition to a low-carbon economy could have negative impacts on certain industries and lead to job losses. Many experts and policymakers argue that while the agreement is not perfect, it is a critical step forward in the global effort to address climate change. Many consumers don't feel safe having an electric vehicles for multiple reasons. The number of electric cars on the road make up no more than 1% compared to gasoline vehicles. This means the probability of something going wrong, statistically speaking, cannot be ruled out. There just hasn't been enough time or electric cars on the road to assure one's safety and driving confidence. Like with gasoline vehicles, a similar analogy to miles per gallon called battery range can be a bit off of what the car manufacturers advertise to consumers. The difference being, consumers can refill their vehicles at any gas station in a matter of minutes, compared to electric charging stations, which can take hours to do. Not knowing the exact timing and range of driving one would normally get can be confusing to many. If electric car makers want to get as many consumers to buy their electric cars as possible, they should first work on not only building a superior car, but more infrastructure in general. Gas companies are going to do whatever they can to assure their profits are up and their shareholders are happy. The reason you don't see gas prices at an outrageous rate like $10 or $20 a gallon is because they know a limit on how much they can extract from consumers. There's a probability they use advanced technical analytical algorithms to determine just how high they can charge consumers without causing chaos. This analytical algorithm predicts at which rate consumers are still willing to pay without abandoning their cars altogether. The stakes of these corporate giants having insider information are as obvious as it gets. They are a business, and like any business, the goal is to make more money. Gasoline prices have been on a steady incline, causing concern and financial strain for many. The multifaceted reasons behind the rising costs of gas, which are not limited to a single factor, but rather a complex interplay of global events, economic policies, and natural market dynamics. The oil market is subject to speculation and investment trends. Investors' reactions to global events can cause rapid changes in oil prices. Understanding the reasons behind these increases is crucial for consumers and policymakers alike. While some factors, such as post-pandemic demand, are a natural result of global recovery, others, like geopolitical tensions and market speculation, require careful navigation to mitigate their impact on gas prices. Geopolitical events have historically had a substantial impact on oil prices, and the recent times are no exception. Conflicts such as the war in Ukraine and tensions in the Middle East have led to uncertainties in oil supply, contributing to the volatility of gas prices. Some speculate this is to have consumers switch to electric vehicles. The problem is, electric vehicles aren't any more affordable at the moment in terms of the car itself and refueling at charging stations. With the reinstatement of the Paris Agreement and push for a Green New Deal, as well as incentives for electric vehicles, many are left scratching their heads. On the other hand, you have oil companies making record profits. It seems it's always the consumer who gets screwed. As of right now, there's no way of really knowing when there will be enough supply and demand for a transition to electric vehicles, although the goal of many is by the year 2030. When gas prices decrease, consumers spend less money on fuel, which leaves more disposable income for other expenses or savings. This can lead to an increase in consumer spending in other sectors of the economy, potentially boosting overall economic growth. Lower gas prices can reduce the cost of living. Since transportation is a major expense for many households, cheaper gas can ease the financial burden, especially for lower-income families, for whom gas expenses represent a larger portion of their budget. Gas prices are a key component of inflation. When they fall, it can help to stabilize or reduce overall inflation rates, which benefits consumers by increasing the purchasing power of their money. Businesses that rely heavily on transportation, such as logistics and delivery services, benefit from lower fuel costs. This can lead to lower prices for goods and services, as companies may pass on the savings to consumers. Reduced gas prices can encourage more travel and tourism, as people are more likely to take road trips and vacations when fuel is affordable. This can have a ripple effect on industries such as hospitality and entertainment. Interestingly, while lower gas prices can lead to increased consumption, which has environmental drawbacks, they can also provide an opportunity for investment in alternative energy sources. Consumers and businesses might be more willing to invest in fuel-efficient vehicles and technologies when they feel less pressure from high gas prices. Many claim that presidents and politicians have little or no control over gas prices. Although that may be true in many circumstances, the agreement to limit oil drilling will also limit the amount of refinement that is allowed to take place, therefore increasing the demand and overall cost.
If you enjoyed this video, please support the channel by liking, hitting the subscribe button, and bell notification. Thank you.